Hello, greetings. Man, sometimes I get tired of being stressed out writing articles and books, especially when I give them away for free, considering the fact that I've never had a real vacation. That's just me, though, right? I think a lot of people just think I just make videos. I don't know what they think I'm doing the rest of the time. I really don't know what they think. Does it really matter? The answer to that is no. Later this year, I'll actually start a book, hopefully at the end of this year, start a book on RETRODUCTIon. It's the ancient lost Pythagorean and Platonic methodology. Actually, it's also the premise of Theurgy, or synthesis. It's the apophatism. The Indians called it via negativa, or neti neti. It's not a philosophical statement like, this is a rock, it is hard, and it's... That's a statement. It's also a methodology. I'll give you an example, and this is basically a very, very tiny, simplified primer of what retroduction or apophaticism is. By the way, apophaticism is in the name that I use on YouTube, which is theorepophasis, which means theurgy or theosis through apophaticism. In other words, it's retroductive assimilation. I'll never use the word meditation, since that's the worst word in the English language, because it doesn't denote or connote anything. It's a bastard word that doesn't actually refer to anything. You could be sitting on your toilet and staring at the holes in your ceiling, and that technically is meditation. I will never use that word, and don't use that word with me, by the way. I kindly ask you. I'll give you a perfect example of neti neti or via negativa, and I'm actually the world's expert. There's absolutely nobody. It's egotistical, right? Still accurate. Nobody knows more about the term anatta than I do, or specifically the Sanskrit term anatman. They say, this is not the soul, that is not the soul. It's like, well, that's a declaration. This is not my soul, that's not my soul. And of course, some of the most unintelligent people on earth are Buddhists, as they like to be called. They say, well, Buddhism is unique, and this is their own words, by the way. It teaches that there's no soul, because this is not the soul, that's not the soul. It's like, yeah, I can point to the countless things that are not an elephant, but that is not a denial of an elephant. Specifically, getting to the point, not talking about the titanically ignorant Buddhists and their pseudo-philosophy, not the actual original doctrine, which is extremely pure and logical and sensible and Platonic, and it's really refined and unfortunately it's not very precise. This is the reason why all Indian hardcore metaphysicians and philosophers migrated to Greek metaphysics and philosophy, because it gets to the point a lot quicker. Buddhists, when you talk with an ignorant Buddhist, they're sitting there arguing about asti nasti, which means is there or is there not. And of course there's a soul, but to posit it, you can't posit it objectively, right? The soul is, of course, subjective. There's no radio signal in a radio, but there's not a person on this earth that's stupid enough to think that the signal doesn't exist, right? This is when people stupidly say, well, what happens to the soul when you die? It's like, what happens to the signal when you smash the radio? Well, that's a good one. Well, think about that one. It's the consubstantiality of matter and spirit. This is why death is not the opposite of life. It's the end of life. Death is not the opposite of life. But specifically, we also have to speak about apophaticism, we have to define metaphysics, true metaphysics, not like the New Age garbage you see in your bookstores. Like, I'm in the metaphysics section. There's Deepak Chopra and countless other. There's Ken Wilber. The guy's name is kind of close to mine. He's also a New Age wackadoodle. Wackadoodle, I said, right? We're not talking about New Age garbage here. When we're talking about true metaphysics from the Greek or Indian sense, we're actually talking about pure subjectivity. There's all the phenomena that are out here, forms, feelings, perceptions, impulses, gross matter. We cannot find the things that we are supposed to seek, be that the wisdom or the soul. And by the way, from the perspective of true monistic metaphysics, there's no distinction between wisdom and the soul. To seek the self is wisdom, and wisdom is to seek the self to seek itself. But it can't be sought objectively. The subject precedes object of negation, but it also precedes objects of observation. Yeah, there's a really profound statement. It just came up spontaneously in my head. In other words, the only means of true assimilation, or theurgy, or apophaticism. Apophaticism is not a statement. Just like the idiot Buddhists who think, well, this is not the soul, this isn't doctrine right here. So rupa anatta, veda anatta, sana anatta, sankhara anatta, vinyana anatta, nama rupa anattati. There's an ancient dead language that has been dead now for over 2,000 years. So this is not the soul, that's not the soul. Well, you'd think that's a statement, but it's not. It's also a retroductive theurgic principle of neti-neti, which means not this, not that, or apophaticism, which of course means the exact same thing. This is not a statement that these things are not the soul. It is a statement for empirical knowledge, which is meant to be germinated into wisdom, which leads you to not identify. This is the identification phenomenology of suffering that you actually see in the mirror. Well, that's myself. It's like, no, that's not yourself. That is rupa, vedana, sana, sankhara, and vijnana. These things are not the self, not the self. That's not it. You're actually pulling back. You're disidentifying. It's like, why does... I ask this question to countless people, and they think it's like a trick question. It's like, why does a woman like cry in a sad movie? She's not part of the movie. She's not in the movie. She's not connected to the movie. She's engaged in it, and she's watching it. But why is there suffering about something that you're not actually connected to? Yeah, this is what we call being a dispassionate observer. You're meant to be a dispassionate observer of all the phenomena that occur in your life that are not part of who you are. That is not myself. Isokaya na misota. The body is not my soul. My soul, of course, is incorrect translation, which is often said by those who don't deny the soul, but you know, my implies possession. Nothing has a soul, but that's not a denial of the soul. That's the denial that something has a soul. Well, this is my soul. Well, it's like, what do you mean, your soul? It's not your possession. There's a coincidence of matter and spirit here, but it's not, you know, one thing doesn't have another. A body doesn't have a soul in it. Well, that means you. So you deny the soul. It's like, no, you didn't listen very closely, you knuckle-dragging, mental midget, subhuman moron. A radio doesn't have a signal. There's a coincidence of the signal to and with the radio, but there's no signal in the radio. There's no fireplace inside this effing iMac. You know, no, there's no damn fire. Let me look again. Let me look at... No, there's no effing fire inside this iMac. No. This, of course, is nothing other than a really complex binary signal, right? Right? It's a binary signal being delivered via the internet, and it's appearing on a screen. It is an illusion. Right. I'm not going to warm my hands by it, right? This is what the Chinese meant by words don't cook rice. But anyway, there's no soul in the body. But that's not a denial of the soul. The point being is getting back to metaphysics, is that the ultimate goal of metaphysics is true metaphysics, Greek and Indian. True goal of metaphysics is wisdom. Well, the self and the wisdom are one and the same thing. It's really a distinction, not a difference. But for sake of parlance and conversation and cogitation in your brain, let's talk about wisdom and the self, both ultimately being the same. Since we're actually talking about things of metaphysics, these are things of pure subjectivity. Out here is the realm of phenomena. Yeah? This is the realm of phenomena right here. This is all the stuff we love. Our toys, our cars, all the crap, all our money, you know, our good looks, and our Rolex watches, and all the other crap, forms, feelings, perception. This is not what we are. Nope, we're not. It's not a statement. It's also a methodology. When you actually disidentify with that or become, in the absolutist sense, a dispassionate life form being an incorrect word, but ultimately correct, you're engaging in this theurgic methodology of disidentification with the phenomena that is, of course, the endless round. By the word of samsara, or ultimately suffering, means to go round and round and round. It's perpetual identification of what we are not. Oh my God, I lost my car, I'm getting older, oh, this and that, I don't have enough money, I'm not as pretty as she is, and I'm not as popular, and, you know, all of this stuff is shit. All the stuff that you think is important, that I think is important, is crap. Apophaticism, or the theurgy, is used in two ways. Ultimately, its pure use is disobjectification, so that you can actually correctly identify with what you are by objective negation. Objective negation leads to subjective synthesis. It's the very start of same. It's not the ultimate end goal of same. It's the start of that. But I mean, that is, it's pointing, the arrow is pointing your compass in the correct direction. Theurgy or apophaticism or retroduction is pointing your compass away from objectivity, i.e. phenomena, and towards pure subjectivity. So that's the actual methodology. That is the purest form of retroduction or apophaticism. The existentialist use of retroduction is different. That's identification of answers that are not directly objectively knowable. Like we don't have enough facts to draw a conclusion, but if we actually have a few things, like this is really why I'm extremely good at diagnostic elimination when I diagnose things like cameras and computers and other things, is that just by having a couple facts, I could actually work my way backwards. That's not induction or deduction, it's abduction. Abduction. Most people think abduction is like stealing some kid from somebody else or something. I'm talking about true abduction. You're actually retroducing yourself away from the phenomena or the things that you don't know. You only have this much information. Well, I can actually abduce or retroduce the answer to this. I can synthesize it. Just as the true self or the soul is not objectively known. Well, if I can't objectively know it, then I can't really, From the premise of an existentialist or an atomist or a modern-day scientist who's not a real scientist in the Aristotelian sense, they're actually an atomist, they think that nothing can be known unless it is objectively knowable. I need to be able to stick it underneath the microscope and, rectally examine it. It's like you can't... they won't actually, this is why they're so stupid. They don't believe you can know something unless it is objectively knowable. I can't hold it in my hand and stick it underneath the microscope and show it to more of my scientist buddies and, it doesn't exist and I'm not interested in it. Well, most of the things in life and absolutely every aspect, this is why scientists are not interested in metaphysics, but metaphysics is just the flip side of the coin to physics. They're not like two different things. Physics is metaphysics. Like, no. Metaphysics and physics are just the heads and the tails of the same silver of the coinage. Most important things in life and the answers to a lot of the mysteries that can't be objectively known, people think that you can only logically know things objectively. Well, I have to have all the facts, and I have all the facts. I could add up 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 5. Well, there's another way. If I only have one of these, and I know the nature of what this is, and applying retroductive logic, you're actually able to synthesize an enormous amount of facts by simply knowing this and this alone. I don't have this information. Just like the pure subject cannot be objectively known. I only know that this is not the self, not the soul. There's no soul in the body, but that's not a denial of the soul. Retroduction is engaged. It's actually the amazing thing, and this is a completely lost art of the Pythagoreans, specifically, the Pythagoreans and the Neoplatonists are the biggest adherents to the same. Aristotle to a much, much less degree is why I'm not a big fan of Aristotle, along with the fact that he's too much of an existentialist, just a little bit too much anyway. Is that this is helpful not only in life, but it's helpful for what you really are, and disobjectification from everything that causes suffering. Everything that causes suffering, the answer is theurgic retroduction. Everything, disidentification from this to direct synthesis with who and what you are, which you're not a what, but who you are. But you're also not a who. I mean, Bob, Sue, Larry, that's a persona non grata, which is never the soul. So I was incorrect to say who, but with as the Indians would say, tattvamasi, that thou art, which would be a more accurate statement, but no one knows what the hell I'm saying when I say tattvamasi. So it would be incorrect to say the who, but I mean, it's useful in life, and it's useful for understanding that which you really are. It's really the most useful tool in the entire world, and it is completely lost. It's not taught in schools, it's not taught in college. The closest thing we got to it, and it's not that close, is like people watching Sherlock Holmes using induction and deduction. But, induction and deduction about looking for a needle in a haystack. Well, Watson, the needle fell over here, so it's probably located over there, and since it's metal, it fell about 6 inches. That sort of induction and deduction reasoning, while helpful, is far, far, far inferior to retroduction. Retroduction would be like, well, the needle is metal and the hay is grass. I'm going to set a match to it all. Boom. Everything is gone and the needle is left laying right there. The same is true, and this is the reason why the original word, meditation is the most evil word in the world, by the way. The original Indian term is samadhi or jhana. The original word is jayati. Jayati means to burn. And here's a really actually... The term that you call meditation, which is completely bastardized and doesn't mean anything at all anymore, the original true synthesis by Indian definition, in the ancient Greek and Indian is really good as far as the words not only tell you what it is, but how it is the word to burn. What it means is you're burning away all the stuff that is not who and that which you are, tattvamasi. And the only thing that's left is pure subjectivity, kind of like the metal needle in the haystack that is flammable. The original Pali, Prakrit, and Brahmi term for samadhi, which I'm sure you know what samadhi is the word is jhana, which comes from the word jayati, which means to burn. But it means literally to burn away all that which is not the self. And then the only thing you're left with is pure subjectivity. Apophaticism can be used existentially very, very effectively, as I've done in life, but it is also the ultimate effective objective negation leading to subjective synthesis methodology for actual true hardcore metaphysics, both Greek and Indian. The Indian apophaticism, the Greek retroduction is apophaticism. The Indian retroduction is neti. Neti, not this, not that. This is the basis of the term anatta. You see, original Buddhist doctrine, I want to talk about Buddhism because Buddhists are extremely ignorant, unintelligent people. The original Buddhist doctrine is extremely logical and sensible and very, very Platonic, believe it or not. But Gautama, the historical Gautama, the person that the modern idiots call the Buddha, would have been an idiot if he, and there's countless thousands and thousands and thousands of passages. This is not the self, that's not the self. The self, there's always two selves. There's the existential self and the ontological self, i.e. the soul, and the persona non grata, i.e. the psychophysical. Buddhism would be the most illogical, nonsensical BS if it both denied the soul, but also spent an enormous amount of time saying, this is not the soul, that's not the soul, that's not the soul, not this either, and that's not the soul. You wouldn't need to do that. If there were no soul, you would just say, if someone asked a question, you'd say, there's no friggin' soul. You would not say, this isn't the soul, that's not the soul. That's stupid. That's a piss waste of time. Buddhist doctrine, original Buddhist doctrine, doesn't do that. It nowhere decries that there's no soul. And of course, then you get into arguments of asti nasti. Is there or is there not? And then, of course, that's another issue, and I can't get into discussing that here because it would take too damn long. But the original doctrine is not illogical. It spends all that time saying, this is not the soul, that's not the soul, because it's leading you to subjective synthesis. But since Buddhists are so incredibly ignorant and stupid, they think that this means that, well, original Buddhism says there's no soul. It's like, no, it doesn't say that anywhere. It says just the opposite. Just the opposite, it says. It says, Atta Dipa Viharate, dwell with the soul as your light, not yourself, because yourself is anatta. It is forms, feelings, perceptions, impulse. There's a perfect example of how stupid Buddhists are. They're stupid on many, many levels, but they're completely ignorant of doctrine. It would be like every Christian on earth, like completely never wanting to read the Bible. Oh, that's a perfect analogy anyway. It's like, no, I'm not going to read that stuff. It's like, why? I thought you were a Christian. I don't want to read the Bible. No. They're so ignorant. But yeah, that would define Buddhism as the most ignorant philosophy to ever be given birth to. You spend thousands and thousands of passages saying, that's not the soul, that's not the soul, that's not the soul. Well, that would be stupid. You would never do that. If you had 5 brain cells, you would just say, if it taught that there was no soul, you say, no, you wouldn't say any of that. You just say, there's no soul. Boom, there it is, no soul. Someone asked about the soul. No, there's no soul. There's no such passage. There ain't no such passage. This is why Buddhists are so stupid. God, they're stupid. Oh, man, some Buddhist is going to leave a comment, but I don't like you. I was taught that there is no soul, and that's what I believe. And my answer to that is, good for you. I don't give a damn. I'm right. I've been translating Pali for 20 years, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Nor could you have an intelligent or logical debate with me on the topic, because you would lose. Now, you might say now that I'm an arrogant SOB, and you might be right, but the real question is, am I right? And the answer is yes. Not only am I right, I'm logical and sensible, and I actually know what the hell I'm talking about on this topic. So anyway, I hope you like this video. If you do, you can click the link below. Any help is always welcome. Or you can tell me how much you hate me. Either way, net sum gain. Whatever makes you happy. Thank you. Lux e veritas. Bye. That's Latin, by the way. I wish I had more Latin in school. Of course, I'm self-taught on a lot of languages, but yeah, there's just not much very, very good importance written in Latin. That's a problem. It's all Christian theology. Not all of it, but like 99% of it is. So that's why I never continue with a lot of Latin. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.